There is a mistake so common, so deeply embedded in the Christian world, that most believers make it every single day without ever realizing it. It doesn't happen in the streets. It doesn't happen in the marketplace. It happens inside the church, inside the home, inside the heart of people who love God deeply, who pray sincerely, who give faithfully, and who still wonder year after year why their finances never seem to change. This is episode 3, and today we are going to talk about the one financial mistake that 90% of Christians still make, not because they are bad people, not because God has forgotten them, but because nobody ever told them the truth, until now. Let's go back, way back, to a moment in history that most people read too fast to understand. The Israelites had just been freed from Egypt, 400 years of slavery, 400 years of working without wages, building without owning, living without freedom. And suddenly, overnight, God pulls them out, miraculously, powerfully, supernaturally. And you would think that after such a deliverance, these people would walk into the promised land with confidence, with boldness, with the mindset of people who served the God of the universe. But something strange happened in the desert. They were free in their bodies, but they were still slaves in their minds. They complained about food. They complained about water. They wanted to go back to Egypt, back to the very place that had broken them. Because at least in Egypt, they said, we had something to eat. Read that again. They preferred slavery with bread over freedom with faith. And here is where the story becomes deeply personal, because that same pattern, that exact same mental trap is still happening today in Christian homes, in Christian bank accounts, in Christian prayers that ask God for provision while rejecting the very principles He gave us to create it. The mistake is not what you think it is. It is not laziness. It is not a lack of prayer. It is not even a lack of faith, at least in the traditional sense. The mistake is this: most Christians have separated their spiritual life from their financial life. They pray on Sunday and panic on Monday. They trust God with their soul, but not with their strategy. They believe in miracles, but they have never learned the mechanics. And the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, is filled with financial mechanics. This is not prosperity gospel. This is not name it and claim it theology. This is something far more ancient, far more serious, and far more practical than anything the modern church has been willing to talk about. God never intended for His people to be financially passive. He never said, sit down, do nothing, and wait for manna to fall every morning for the rest of your life. The manna in the desert was a temporary provision for a temporary season. But the Promised Land? The Promised Land required strategy. It required courage. It required work, wisdom, and obedience to specific financial laws that God had already written into creation. Let's talk about Deuteronomy 8:18, one of the most powerful and most misunderstood verses in the entire Bible. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Read that carefully. God gives you the ability, not the wealth itself, the ability to produce it. There is a profound difference between those two things. A God who simply drops money on you creates dependency. A God who gives you the ability to produce wealth creates something else entirely. He creates partnership. He creates responsibility. He creates a human being who is not just a receiver of blessing, but a builder of it. And here is where 90% of Christians make the mistake. They pray for the harvest, but they never plant the seed. They ask God for increase, but they never engage with the principles of increase. They want the blessing of Abraham without studying what Abraham actually did. Abraham was not just a man of faith, he was a man of extraordinary financial intelligence. Genesis 13 tells us that Abraham was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. He negotiated land deals, he raised armies, he understood the economics of his time, and he operated within them with wisdom and integrity. Abraham was a man of God and a man of business, and he never once saw those two things as contradictions. So why do so many Christians today treat wealth as something suspicious, something worldly, something that serious believers should keep at a safe distance? Part of the answer lives in a verse that has been quoted and misquoted for centuries. 1 Timothy 6:10, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." The love of money, not money itself, the love of it. But somewhere along the way, that distinction got lost, and entire generations of Christians grew up believing that wealth itself was dangerous, that ambition was worldly, that financial success was somehow incompatible with spiritual depth. And the result? Brilliant, gifted, anointed people who never fully stepped into the financial dimension of their calling. Not because they lacked talent, not because God didn't have a plan, but because they had been taught, subtly, consistently, that money and ministry don't mix. That is the lie, and today we dismantle it. Proverbs 13:22 says something that should stop you in your tracks. A good person leaves an inheritance for his children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. An inheritance for your children's children. That's not one generation. That's 3. God's financial vision for his people is not week-to-week survival. It is generational wealth. It is the kind of legacy that outlasts you, that carries your values, your wisdom, and your resources forward into a future you will never see. But you cannot build a generational legacy with a poverty mindset. You cannot create an inheritance when every financial decision is made from fear, from scarcity, from the belief that there is never enough. And this is where the mistake becomes a cycle, a deeply painful cycle that passes from parent to child, from generation to generation, not as a genetic condition, but as a belief system, a story, a set of unspoken rules about money that gets inherited right alongside the furniture and the family name. The parable of the talents in Matthew 25 is one of the clearest financial teachings in the entire New Testament, and yet most Christians read it as a spiritual metaphor and miss its profound economic lesson. A master leaves on a journey. Before he goes, he gives 3 servants different amounts of money according to their ability. To one he gives 5 talents, to another 2, to the last 1. When the master returns, the first 2 servants have doubled what they were given. They invested, they took risk, they engaged with the resources entrusted to them, and they multiplied it. But the third servant, he buried it, he hid it in the ground, he was afraid. And when the master came back, he returned exactly what he had been given, nothing more, nothing less. And the master's response is devastating. He calls him wicked, he calls him lazy, and he takes away the 1 talent he had and gives it to the man who had 10.
This parable is not just about spiritual gifts, it is about stewardship, about the sacred responsibility of managing what God has placed in your hands, about the terrifying possibility that fear, more than sin, more than failure, can keep you from fulfilling your financial destiny. The servant didn't lose the money. He didn't spend it on something foolish. He simply did nothing. And in the economy of the kingdom, doing nothing with what God gives you is the one thing He will not overlook. So what does this mean for you? What does it look like practically to stop making this mistake? It starts with a decision, a deeply personal, deeply spiritual decision to stop separating your faith from your finances. It means reading the Bible not just for comfort and salvation, though it is absolutely those things, but also for wisdom, for strategy, for the financial principles that God embedded in His Word long before any economics textbook was ever written. Solomon, the wealthiest man who ever lived, said in Proverbs 4:7, "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding." Wisdom first, understanding second, then the wealth follows, not the other way around. This is why the richest Christian is not always the one who prays the loudest. It is the one who combines deep faith with disciplined action, who tithes faithfully and budgets carefully, who gives generously and invests wisely, who understands that the kingdom of God is not opposed to financial intelligence. It was its original source. Malachi 3:10 contains one of the most audacious invitations in all of Scripture. God says, and these are His exact words, "Test me in this. Test me." The God of the universe is inviting you to test Him on the tithe, on the principle of first fruit giving, on the idea that when you honor Him with the first portion of everything you earn, He will open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing so great that you will not have room enough to receive it. This is not a transaction. It is not a vending machine theology where you put in your 10% and out comes your miracle. It is something far deeper. It is a posture of the heart, a declaration that God is Lord over every dollar, every investment, every financial decision you will ever make. And when that posture becomes real, not just on paper, not just on Sunday morning, but in the daily, practical, sometimes terrifying reality of your financial life, something shifts, something opens, not always immediately, not always dramatically, but consistently, faithfully, and in ways that defy natural explanation. There is one more thing that needs to be said, and it might be the most important thing in this entire episode. The financial mistake that 90% of Christians make is not just about money, it is about identity. Deep in the subconscious of many believers is a story that says, "I don't deserve abundance. Wealth is for other people. I'm just trying to make it through the month." And that story, however quietly it runs in the background, shapes every financial decision you make. But listen to what the Word says about who you are. Romans 8:17, "And if we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ." Heirs of God, not tenants, not employees, not people who barely deserve to be in the building. Heirs with a full legal right to everything that belongs to the Father. You are not a beggar standing outside the palace of provision, hoping someone notices you. You are a child of the King with access to resources that most people can't even imagine. And the day you truly believe that, not just intellectually, not just theologically, but in the deepest part of who you are, is the day your financial life begins to reflect your spiritual reality. So here is where we land. The mistake is not that Christians are unblessed. The mistake is that most Christians have never fully entered the blessing that was already prepared for them. They have read the promises but never claimed them. They have heard the principles but never applied them. They have prayed for harvest but never learned to plant. The promised land is still there. It was always there. God did not revoke the invitation. He did not change His mind. He did not decide that prosperity was no longer part of the covenant. He is simply waiting for His people to stop wandering in the desert of scarcity and step into the land that was always meant to be theirs. This is your moment, not to become obsessed with money, not to make wealth your God, but to become the kind of faithful, wise, generous, courageous steward that God always designed you to be. Because when Christians understand money, they don't just change their own lives, they fund missions, they build schools, they feed the hungry, they carry the gospel to places it has never been. Your financial breakthrough is not just about you. It never was. It's about every life your resources were meant to touch. And that story is only beginning.